Congratulations, Alex.
Thank you.
Big time stuff there. We saw all the emotions at the end of this match. What was going through your mind?
So much. I think at the end of the match, my legs just kind of buckled. They weren't working anymore. And it was an overwhelming wave of emotions, I guess. Yeah.
Great tennis, but I want to ask you too about playing on that court.
Yeah.
What did you notice? What did you take away from center court?
It was a very different experience for me from last year.
Nobody in that stadium expected what was about to happen, and yet somehow every single seat was already full before the players had even walked out. That's the strange part nobody talks about enough. You can look at a draw sheet, see two names next to each other, and think you know exactly what kind of match you're about to get. And then you show up, and the air itself feels different, and you realize the paper never tells you the whole truth. That's exactly what happened the day Alex walked onto center court to face Iga Swiatek, because what should have been a fairly predictable afternoon turned into one of those matches people replay in their heads for years afterward. So what actually pulled that many people into their seats early? What made grown adults skip work, set alarms for 3 a.m, and huddle around phone screens just to catch a glimpse of this? To understand that, you can't just look at the scoreboard.
Saying since the Miami tournament, Eala has one of the best, if not the best, second serve returns on the WTA Tour. And she can hit any type of return from both sides. So if you as a righty serve to the Eala backhand on the deuce side, she can go Jimmy Connors style down the line or cross court. She can do the same on the ad side. She can go inside out, and her favorite return on the backhand side is the inside in. And similarly on the forehand side, her favorite return is the one on the deuce side, where the player serves slice towards the tee or towards the middle of the box.
You have to go back and trace how a kid from the Philippines ended up standing across the net from one of the most dominant players of her generation, acting like she belonged there all along, because she absolutely did. Rewind the clock a few years, and Alex wasn't a name trending on social media. She was just another junior player grinding through tournaments most casual fans never hear about, the kind of circuit where talent gets tested long before anyone's watching. But even back then, people who actually paid attention noticed something different about her. She had this uncanny sense of timing, this ability to read a point before it even developed, and a stillness under pressure that you genuinely cannot coach into somebody. Most players her age either freeze when the stakes rise or force things that aren't there. Alex did neither. If anything, the bigger the moment got, the calmer she seemed to become, like tension was something she metabolized instead of something that ate away at her.
Completely, about me not handling the pressure well, and I was firing, shots. Today I wanted to be more calm and, play some balls in, but, I was mishitting, half of these returns, and I lost many points, I feel like. Maybe if I watch, I'm going to see something else, but for me, today was more about the tennis, and if I'm also happy how I came back,
That kind of composure doesn't happen by accident, and hers was sharpened even further once she started training in environments built around elite competition, surrounded by players chasing the exact same impossible dream, where mediocrity simply wasn't an option and improvement was the baseline expectation every single day. But here's the thing about tennis, and really about any sport where rankings shift on a weekly basis. One big win doesn't guarantee anything. You can play the match of your life on a Tuesday and find yourself packing your bags in the first round the following week, wondering what went wrong. The gap between a promising junior and a legitimate professional threat is where most careers quietly stall out. The physical toll increases, the mental grind never lets up, and every single opponent across the net is fully capable of punishing even a half-second of hesitation. So many players who look destined for greatness at 17 simply vanish from relevance by 21, not because they lack talent, but because they couldn't handle that specific kind of pressure long enough to build real consistency. Alex refused to become another cautionary tale. Instead of letting the losses discourage her, she treated each one like a lesson wrapped in disappointment, something to dissect rather than something to fear.
I didn't think I'd be making this many videos about women's tennis at Wimbledon, but once I researched Alex Eala's story, I couldn't resist this one. If you don't already know the name of Alex Eala, get ready because she is the first Filipino tennis player to make it through to the third round of a Grand Slam's singles tournament at Wimbledon. But that isn't the best thing about her story. In August last year, Eala wore a t-shirt designed by Manila-based designer Georgina Camus, which featured the national flower of the Philippines, the sampaguita. And for her Wimbledon look, she chose to honor her heritage, but also send a message of strength, with this Filipino phrase embroidered into the back of her.
Every defeat pointed toward a weakness worth fixing. Every win, no matter how small, confirmed that the hours of unglamorous practice were actually adding up to something real. And then came the moment that changed the entire conversation around her name. When she stepped onto the court against Swiatek in Miami and walked away with the win, it wasn't just a headline that would fade by the weekend. It was proof, both to the tennis world and to Alex herself, that she could go toe-to-toe with one of the very best and not just survive, but actually dictate terms. What made that win so remarkable wasn't just the scoreline. It was how she carried herself throughout. Plenty of young players get a few dazzling moments before their nerves catch up with them and the wheels come off.
I think last year, before the match, I was really emotional because I was like, wow, the impact of this court. And I think, and before the match today, I think I was able to put myself in a mindset where it's still important. It's still a big match for me, but at the same time, it's like every other match, you know? So I think I had a good balance. Yeah.
Talk more about the impact of the court. What does that mean to you?
I think it's just because this court has been the one that I've seen so many times, and you know, you're at the baseline before serving and you can imagine all the scenes of everybody winning their Wimbledons.
Alex never gave that opportunity. She stayed locked in from the very first point to the very last, playing with an intention that didn't waver, adjusting when she needed to, and building belief with every rally she won. That single result did something you can't manufacture with hype or marketing. It changed the way people looked at her. Once you beat a player of that caliber, opponents stop underestimating you, and more importantly, you stop underestimating yourself. That shift in belief is priceless, and Alex had earned every bit of it the hard way. As her results kept climbing, something else started happening around her, something that had nothing to do with rankings or statistics. The crowds kept growing.
Victory over Swiatek again. She obviously beat her in Miami a couple of 12 months ago, and now she's beaten her as the defending champion in the first win on a center court at Wimbledon. And she's in the fourth round of a Grand Slam for the first time. Let's see what happened. All right, so 2 hours and 14 minutes. So the first set was super long. Both of them have set points. It never really felt like Eala was in trouble. Even if she had lost that first set, Eala was in control. It was really, really interesting to see how Swiatek was just battling the entire time. You can see there that the serving was pretty consistent. Both of them were serving well-ish, but obviously the 5-double false for Swiatek really, really hurt her in the end. And actually,
at first it made sense. Filipino fans wanted to show up for one of their own, someone representing a country still chasing its first Grand Slam singles champion. But then people who had zero connection to the Philippines started showing up too, and that's when you knew something bigger was happening. People don't just gather for talent. They gather for a story worth telling, and Alex's story had every piece required to pull people in. Here was someone humble despite the growing spotlight, playing a style of tennis that rewarded anyone willing to actually pay attention. She wasn't simply overpowering opponents with brute force the way so many modern players try to. She was solving them, shifting angles before you expected it, taking the ball absurdly early to steal time away from her opponent, constructing points like she was 3 moves ahead in a game most people were still trying to understand in real time.
Describe it. I mean, I'm into the second week of a slam and it's amazing for me. Iga is a phenomenal player and a really nice person. So I'm really grateful to be able to share center court with her at Wimbledon nonetheless. Yeah, I'm really emotional. And maybe for someone like Iga, who has won so many slams, or maybe someone like Serena or Venus, this achievement may seem small, but for someone who grew up in the Philippines and...
That kind of tennis becomes especially dangerous against elite players, because champions get used to facing power. What actually unsettles them is unpredictability, never knowing whether she's going to drive it deep, redirect cross-court, or suddenly close in and finish things at the net. And there's really no venue on the planet quite like Wimbledon to test whether that unpredictability holds up under pressure. Something about that place carries weight differently. Maybe it's the history soaked into the grass, maybe it's the traditions that have barely changed in over a century, or maybe it's simply the knowledge that every single champion who's ever lifted that trophy had to earn it on that exact same court. For Alex, walking into Wimbledon wasn't just another stop on the calendar. It was a chance to prove her rise wasn't a one-off story or a lucky stretch but an actual pattern forming, one that was about to collide head-on with one of the most accomplished players in the sport. And that collision is exactly what made this particular matchup so gripping to watch unfold.
Tune up before Roland Garros. What specific areas of Eala's clay court game do you see still needs the most improvement?
I think there's some improvement to be made, in particular with Alex's movement, specifically a little more development with the sliding technique, that being sliding into shots from corner to corner. In particular, when I watched Alex play, on a few occasions her movement out of the corners was a little stuttered due to slightly ineffective sliding, leaving her a little bit exposed when trying to retrieve her opponent's next shot.
Alex wasn't stepping onto that court hoping to simply survive the afternoon. She walked out there believing, genuinely believing, that she had every reason to compete at that level. That kind of self-belief doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from lived experience, from already knowing what it feels like to beat this exact opponent once before. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because Swiatek isn't the type of champion who lets the same mistake happen twice without adjusting. Her entire career has been built on taking losses and turning them into blueprints for improvement. She studies previous matches obsessively, refines whatever went wrong, and comes back sharper almost every single time. That meant Alex couldn't simply lean on whatever had worked in Miami.
That's how Eala got through in this one, and it was really tough to watch Swiatek because she was hitting a lot of areas. She just wasn't playing like herself, but that's what Eala does. Eala frustrates players, and she, makes them play worse than they're used to playing. She's just such a scrapper, and she gets everything back, and really it's just such an awkward player to play, especially when she's confident, and we know Eala is confident on grass. She's played so well on this surface. She's not just beaten Swiatek, she's obviously beaten Svitolina and Rybakina, who are great grass court players. So really interested to see what happens next, because of course Svitolina and Rybakina are out of the tournament in that bottom half of the draw. Paolini comes up next. She's beaten Paolini before over in Dubai and Doha at the start of the year in February. She took her out.
She had to evolve all over again because at this level, standing still is the same as falling behind. And that's really what makes this rivalry so fascinating to break down. It's not a simple story of power against power or youth against experience. It's two remarkably sharp minds trying to outthink each other in real time, every single service game turning into a quiet chess match hidden inside a tennis match, with both players masking their intentions while hunting for the smallest crack in the other's game. One adjustment can flip momentum entirely. One pattern that worked beautifully in the first set can become completely useless the moment your opponent catches on. For Swiatek specifically, her biggest weapon has always been taking time away from her opponents, stepping inside the baseline and redirecting shots before the other player has fully recovered position. It's an incredibly demanding style because even being a fraction of a second late usually results in a costly error.
Her hand inside in into the backhand corner of the righty. She can hit that return with her eyes closed and makes it a lot and also rips it quite fast. She hits her return like I teach it. She abbreviates her preparation and then has a full finish where she gains similar control of the ball like she would on a regular ground stroke. She also has a spectacular forehand return from the ad side as well. She can go cross court, she can go down.
But when she times it correctly, it turns defense into offense almost instantly and puts even the fastest players in uncomfortable positions they can't easily escape. Tennis has always been just as much a psychological battle as a physical one, and very few stages amplify that pressure quite like Wimbledon's grass courts. Every competitor dreams about performing well there, but dreams have a way of colliding hard with reality once the lights actually come on. What's remarkable about Alex, though, is that the bigger the occasion gets, the steadier she seems to become. Instead of shrinking under that pressure, she leans into it. Her body language stays composed, her decision-making rarely feels rushed, and she carries herself with the quiet confidence of someone who genuinely believes she belongs among the best in the world. That mentality has earned her admiration well beyond just the Philippines, because tennis fans everywhere respect competitors who refuse to be intimidated no matter who's standing across the net. And you can't talk about Alex's rise without mentioning the fans, because their presence has become part of the story itself.
So after being a breakdown in the first set, because I feel like in Paris I would just lose it straight. So, I was there to fight. It wasn't enough. For sure, I could play a little bit better, but she also played great and she used her chances and she went for it, In the tiebreak, I remember when it was tight, I slowed down a bit, but she was brave enough to, play a bit faster and you need to be brave on Wimbledon too.
Wherever she plays now, it feels like she's brought a home crowd with her. Philippine flags wave from every section, every impressive rally gets met with the kind of noise you'd expect from a home slam, and ordinary matches somehow transform into unforgettable occasions just because she's the one playing them. For years, tennis has been searching for fresh faces capable of inspiring a brand new generation of players across parts of the world that don't always get this kind of spotlight, and Alex has quietly become exactly that kind of figure. Regardless of how that particular match against Swiatek ultimately ended, one thing became undeniable that day. This wasn't a promising young player who might someday compete with the best in the world. She had already arrived, and every single time she stepped onto a court against someone considered tennis royalty, she kept proving, point by point, that she truly belonged exactly where she stood.